Throughout history, some books were written to spread knowledge. Others were written to hide it. In Zurich, Switzerland, in the cold darkness of a bank vault, there was a book kept locked away for exactly 48 years. When its author died, his family hid this book from the world. They refused to publish it. They even spoke of its existence in whispers. Why? Because within the pages of this book were not the theories of one of the 20th century's greatest scientists, but his darkest journey. Its name, Liber Novus, the new book. But the world knew it by another name, due to the color of its cover, the Red Book. In this book, there were fewer words of a scientist, and more of his visions: dragons, rivers of blood, winged sages, and speaking shadows. So, who wrote this book? A mystic? A shaman? Or a patient who had lost his mind? None of the above. He was one of the founding fathers of modern psychology. The man Sigmund Freud called his heir, Carl Gustav Jung. And this book is the birthplace of half of modern psychology, from the personality tests you take in therapists' offices today, to terms like introvert and extrovert that you use in daily conversations. This is Creators of Eternity. Today, we will journey not just into the life of one man, but into the darkest and most fascinating map of the human mind. To understand the story, we must first understand who Jung was. Because when Jung wrote the Red Book, he wasn't just anyone. He was the crown prince of the psychology world. In the early 1900s, when he met Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, a strong bond formed between them, similar to a father-son relationship. In his letters, Freud addressed him as "my dear son and successor." He saw Jung as the one to whom he would entrust the empire he had built. For 2 years, they wrote to each other almost every day. They traveled to America together. They analyzed their dreams together. But in Jung's mind, there was a spark that Freud could never accept. To Freud, every problem in the human soul, every dream, every neurosis stemmed from a single source: repressed sexual drives, religion, art, mythology. To him, they were all masks for the same thing. But for Jung, this explanation was insufficient. Jung was studying the mythologies of different cultures, from Africa to Asia, from ancient Egypt to Northern Europe. And he realized something. Societies that lived thousands of miles apart, that had never even met, were using the exact same symbols, the same dragon myths, the same stories of death and rebirth, the same heroes. How could this be possible? Jung felt that there was something older than sexuality in the human soul, something deeper, something more ancient, an invisible web connecting all of humanity. By 1913, the ties were broken. Jung's ideas were no longer compatible with Freud's. They were both proud men. Both believed they were right. Their final letters were cold and formal. Freud excommunicated him. The academic world turned its back. Jung had suddenly fallen from the peak, his respected professorship, his international fame, his friends, all gone. And right in this moment of emptiness, the floodgates of his mind burst open. The year was 1913. Jung was 38 years old. From the outside, he was still a respected doctor. He had a family, children, a beautiful house by the lake in Switzerland. But inside, something had begun to collapse. It started in October during a train journey. With his eyes wide open, he saw it. A giant flood washing over the map of Europe, a cold, bloody wave stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss Alps, and thousands of corpses floating within it. The vision returned again and again for 2 weeks. Then, the waters turned yellow. The entire continent was drowning in a toxic liquid. He heard unending screams at his ears. Jung was a psychiatrist. He knew the symptoms of schizophrenia all too well. And now, those symptoms were in him. There was a gun in his drawer. If he was truly losing his mind, he would pull the trigger to spare his family from this burden. But Jung didn't pull the trigger. Instead, he did something a modern scientist would rarely dare to do. He stopped running. He put logic aside, and he walked right into the darkness. He asked himself, what if there is meaning in this madness? What if these images are trying to tell me something? And he made a decision. Every afternoon, he would retreat to his study, close his eyes, and consciously dive into these visions. This was incredibly dangerous. If he crossed the line, he might never come back. But Jung had decided to jump. Jung later gave this process a name: active imagination. This wasn't daydreaming. This was dreaming consciously. While awake, he descended into his inner world, and he conversed with the figures he encountered there. One night, he saw himself descending into a dark cave. There was a red crystal there. Inside the crystal, the corpse of a little girl. Another night, he climbed to the peak of a mountain. An old, winged man was waiting there. His name was Philemon. Philemon told Jung, "Thoughts are like birds. You do not create them. They come from the sky and land in your mind." At first, Jung couldn't believe it. He was a scientist. This had to be a trick of his imagination. But Philemon told him things. Things Jung didn't think he knew. He was wiser than Jung's own mind. The Red Book is the record of these conversations. A 600-page, handwritten journal filled with paintings. Not a work of art, but a map for survival. Philemon showed Jung 3 fundamental truths. First, you are not the person you show to society. That is just a mask, a role. Jung called this the persona. This is why you sometimes feel exhausted when you get home, because you've been carrying a mask all day. Second, there is a darkness inside you that you do not accept, that you hide. Anger, jealousy, fear. Jung called this the shadow, and he realized something. You cannot destroy the shadow. When you ignore it, it only grows stronger. The kindest person you know might have a reservoir of repressed anger inside, and one day it might explode. The solution? To know your shadow, to accept it, and most importantly, third, you are not alone. The human mind shares an unseen ocean. Jung called this the collective unconscious. This is why you got scared watching a horror movie, scared of something that has never happened to you, because that fear is woven into the DNA of your ancestors. The dark, predators, isolation. Jung's visions were not just coming from his personal mind. They were coming from the shared memory of all humanity. And a few months later, in 1914, World War I broke out. That bloody flood, that yellow poison, had become reality. Jung wasn't going mad. He was just listening, more deeply. Jung survived that hell, and with the map he brought back from it, he changed modern psychology forever. Introversion, extroversion, archetype, individuation. Many of the personality tests you would fill out in a psychologist's office today are fed by the concepts Jung discovered in those dark nights. But Jung's true gift was something deeper than his concepts. He showed us this. Running from your darkness is feeding it. Turning toward it is transforming it. Toward the end of his life, on the shores of Lake Zurich in Bollingen, he built a stone tower with his own hands. No electricity, no running water, no technology, only stone, wood, and silence. Every year, he added another piece, as if he were building his own soul. He would sit there by the fire, carve symbols into the stones, and say, "My life is a story of the self-realization of the unconscious." When he died at the age of 83, he left behind a legacy. You are not made only of light. You also have darkness, and the two together make you human. Jung didn't teach us to be perfect. He taught us to be whole. The Red Book was finally published in 2009, 48 years after Jung's death. People from all over the world were astonished when they looked at those pages, because those pages weren't just the madness of one man. They were the purest form of courage. Jung opened his own door. He walked in, he faced his shadows, and he walked out. A sage. What about you? What is in the locked room of your own mind? Which unknown shadow disturbs you in the dead of night? What masks have you worn so long that you've forgotten your own face? Jung has a message for you. The darkness is not your enemy. It is your teacher. This is Creators of Eternity, the place for those who dare to descend into the depths of the mind. Until our next journey.